Hello, movie and entertainment fans, and welcome back to the Calvin Cam podcast, where we tackle all sorts of topics in the film, television, and video game world. I'm Calvin, and today we have another episode review for HBO's The Last of Us. So sit back, relax, and get ready for an in-depth review on HBO's The Last of Us, Episode 2, Infected. Episode 2, Infected, dives deeper into the world of The Last of Us. It kicks off with another strong and unsettling flashback that explores more of the origins of the outbreak in this world, and it sets up for more of the overall story. After this opening sequence, it throws us right back into where the pilot episode left off, as our main characters, Joel and Tess, continue on their way to deliver Ellie to the Fireflies. And wow, did this episode take the show to the next level. This episode was so well adapted from the game. And what's cool is it was directed by the creator of The Last of Us, Neil Druckmann, the man himself. And what an incredible job he did directing. The episode was perfectly made, and if you weren't hooked by the story from the first episode, then this episode will absolutely capture you. It was more suspenseful, and as someone who is a huge fan of the game, it gave us so many Easter eggs from the game, and the acting performances from these actors made us connect with these characters even more so. Pedro Pascal as Joel Miller, Bella Ramsey as Ellie, and Anna Torv as Tess really played their roles outstandingly. Casting for this show, casting for a show in general, is one of the most important parts of the whole process. You can have an amazing story, you can have amazing writing, you can have an amazing cinematographer and cinematography, but if you don't have the right actors, especially in an adaptation project, that can tank an entire show completely. Luckily for us, we have been blessed with nothing but amazing casting choices in this, and the writing is amazing as well. Craig Mazin, who is responsible for HBO's Chernobyl, which is phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it. Craig co-wrote this show with Neil Druckmann. So again, the amount of care in production and choices for the creation of this show is perfect, and it's so great to see come to life, come to so far from 2013 video game to a 2023 cinematic masterpiece in my eyes. Now let's go back into the episode and we'll talk about a few things. The opening scene, for one, is a flashback taking us back to 2003, but shows us somewhere else in the world. I believe it's Indonesia. It focuses on a woman scientist who is a mycologist, someone who studies fungi, being taken to a facility to inspect a body that has this militia concerned about. She inspects the body and finds that the form of live fungus has fully embedded into the subject when it shouldn't be possible. She freaks out, and the military guys ask her basically, what's up and what should they do? And she's, without even sugarcoating it, she's just like, we got to bomb the city and everyone in it. That's what needs to be done. If you want to stop this, that's what needs to happen. And later on in the episode, when we jump 20 years later, as Joel and Ellie and Tess are walking through the city, we see one of the bomb sites in Boston. We see a big crater where one of the bombs hit, and Tess kind of explains to Ellie, yeah, that's exactly what went down in the world. Is some places tried to stop the infection from spreading, but overall it took over. And this is also where one of the main differences between the show and the game that I noticed happens. In the game, where this scene had left off in the first Last of Us episode, the game continues right off of it from there. It's raining, it's dark, you actually go into one of the tilted skyscrapers, and you don't do that in the show, but you go into the tilted skyscrapers and you're fighting infected through the office buildings. One of the first infected you run into actually is a clicker, so you have to sneak around them and stuff. But that happens later on in the show in a different way. And when I pick up on these differences between the game and the show, none of them are bad, and I don't mean to make it sound if I'm making it sound bad, because when I talk about the differences between the two and the game and the show, more times than not, it's adapted perfectly in a way that works for me and works for the show and telling the story in this format. So I don't want anybody to get confused when I'm comparing them. Like, no, I love the comparison. I love the differences. But anyway, in the game we have that sequence of them going through the building and the offices and whatnot. But in the show, it's sunny. We've moved on a little bit further into that day. It's sunny. They're traveling through the city. We're learning a little bit more of what happened here. And one of the things that stand out the most in this episode, especially during this time of day, is the set. Boston. Wow. It looks massive and it's beautiful. We get to see Boston all overgrown, and it's gorgeous overview shots of the city. We get to see the Capitol building in the back of the shots, and that's where they need to go. And that's just like the game. There are certain parts of the game where you stop and you click L3 and you get to see the camera focus on the building in the distance. So it's cool. It's cool to see the massiveness of the world through the show in this way. And I'm glad that they kind of went this route, and they skip a lot of action. They change a lot of action into more of like exposition and character development, and that's perfect. That's what we need to see. It is a straight homage to the game, and we get the same beats so far. We're only in episode 2, but so far we get the same beats. And we get to see our characters walking across a bridge, and it just really captures and feels the scale of the world. And when we approach buildings or are in them, the sets are outstanding. There's a part where Joel, Ellie, and Tess are making their way through some water in the building, and it's just incredible to see all the detail in the set with frogs and moss in the scene, as well as we get some more great acting from Bella Ramsey's portrayal of Ellie during that scene, where she just shows how curious Ellie is and how fun she is and her fun nature, despite being in a broken and harsh world. We still get to see that she's just a kid, and that's great. But another great thing this episode touches on for me is the explanation on how the infection of the fungus works. One of the biggest changes between the game and the show is that the spores were removed in the show. They're in the game, and that's kind of how the infection, that's one of the way the infection spreads in the game. But they took that whole aspect out. There's no spores in the show. Instead, they replace the spores with a more accurate way that the infection would happen in real life with this fungal outbreak, through tentacles and tendrils that flow throughout the environment. And it is also explained that this is the way that the fungus communicates with each other from great distances, like a hive mind. You could step on a piece of fungus, and that could alert the infected from miles away to come running your direction, which is not only more terrifying, but it's absolutely realistic. I was so happy to see that explained, because I hate it when shows don't give you explanations on little details like that. Sometimes it works depending on what the story is and what the show is, but I'm always happy to get some of that deep dive into like what's actually happening and how it actually works. But moving on to another highlight that I have of this episode is the first encounter with the clickers. The clickers are longer lasting infected that have been mutated over the years of the outbreak. this show does an amazing job tackling this encounter. As Joel and Tess and Ellie head through the museum on their way up to the Capitol building, we see Joel and Tess, two characters who have been in this world for a long time and are very tough, and we've seen them, be complete badasses so far, all of a sudden turn scared. And Ellie's kind of like, what's going on? Like, what do you mean? What are we talking about? And they're like, you stay with us, you follow us. Like, are we going to be able to do this? Pretty much. I don't know. So it's really cool the way that they set up the suspense for this encounter. We see them get to fight the clickers. We see them sneak around, and then we see the way that the clickers, search for them with their sonar like capabilities. The clickers can't see you, but they can hear you extremely well. So any kind of little noise can alert them, and they come running to you, and it's absolutely terrifying. So they capture it in the show so well, and one of them attacks Tess, goes off screen. We focus on Ellie trying to escape the situation, and Joel just being a complete badass, fighting them off, shooting at them, doing the slow reload like in the game. It's really cool stuff, really executed well into cinematic form. Finally, after the encounter, our characters make it out of that situation and over to the Capitol building, where the Fireflies are supposed to be toward the end of the episode. But when they arrive, the Fireflies are dead. It looks like someone got infected, and they all end up killing each other. And, that leaves Joel and Tess stumped on what to do with Ellie. And an infected member attacks them, and they kill it, which signals tons of infected runners to come. And this is when we discover Tess was bitten by one of the clickers earlier at the museum when she went off screen. And Anna delivers another great performance as her character. She convinces Joel to take Ellie west to the possible Firefly settlement that we find out about from Ellie, because Ellie opens up earlier in the episode explaining what she is to Marlene, and as being the possible cure for this entire infection, this entire outbreak. It's all relying on Ellie getting to, I believe it was Seattle, to these doctors to make a cure. She was bitten, as we saw in the first episode and this episode, and she cannot get infected. And she gets actually bit again in this episode, and nothing happens, which Tess is like, look, I just got bit, and I'm already, like, the infection's spreading. But look at Ellie's arm, like, it's fine. And she convinces Joel, you have to take her. There has to be hope in this world to survive. And Joel, being so, worn and weathered, he's so hesitant about this whole situation from the get-go. But because of his relationship with Tess, I feel that he finally gives in and kind of opens up to letting hope back into his heart. Clearly, all of it died with Sarah. So we get to see Joel start his change when he and Ellie begin their journey together. Tess then sacrifices herself in an incredibly awesome but also really kind of creepy way. An infected comes up to her as they swarm the building, and Joel and Ellie, escape. Tess had poured fuel all over the ground and had grenades. I don't know why she didn't just take a grenade and blow it up. She had to make it a little bit more dramatic than I thought she should have. She just grabbed a lighter and was going to light everything. I don't know why she just didn't pull a pin on that grenade. But an infected comes up to her, sees her. I think there's an unspoken language between the fungus in this particular scene, where the infected looks at her and feels probably that she is infected. So there's no need to be like really aggressive on getting her infected. So it just walks up to her and kind of kisses her, like puts its mouth on her mouth, and the tendrils come out and into Tess, and Tess is lighting the lighter, and she finally gets it lit and blows up the Capitol building as Joel and Ellie escape. And it's a really cool moment. It's a really interesting and unique moment, and I like it. It looks beautiful. I think it was beautifully executed. So, and then we end on Ellie just standing there, kind of like realizing like this world's fucked up. This world is hard. There are a lot of terrible things that could happen if you're not careful. So, and that's overall, I think this episode did amazing. 10 out of 10. I think the whole show is pretty much 10 out of 10 so far, but we'll see, I'm not being like extremely harsh. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the season play out. We know from the conversation earlier in the episode that we are now going to be heading over into Bill and Frank's story, which they are two characters that I am looking forward to seeing adapted into television form. Bill being played by Nick Offerman. Some of you know him from Parks and Rec as Ron Swanson. Looking forward to seeing his performance, very much so. So we'll catch you next week when we review the third episode. So thanks for listening. Well, that's just about wraps up today's episode. Again, I just want to say thank you for tuning in and listening to the show. Thank you so much for your support. It really goes a long way. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share and spread the word to friends, family, and etc. It really helps the show grow and expand, which will provide you with more and more of my sweet voice. The Calvin Cam podcast is currently available on Spotify and YouTube, and very, very soon, Google and Amazon and Apple. So look out for those notifications. There's so much more content to come, especially as the support grows. So thank you, and have a great day, everyone.